Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining me today for this session on Imagineering education, and thank you to BPESA for hosting these skills sessions. So 2020 happened, right? The world was just happily and quite casually rolling along, turning on its axis, and boom. In March this year, it was the end of the world as we knew it. The entire planet has had to rethink and pivot and change everything that they knew or thought they knew about everything. And whilst it's been pretty damaging and frightening and mostly just completely overwhelming for most of us, myself included, the much needed digital transformation that we've been speaking about and waiting for took place overnight. And it kind of had to. It could have done it a little more gently, but it happened nonetheless. My name is Natasha Tseletsky. You can call me Tash. I'm the GM for People Solutions for emerging markets and digital transformation, but I prefer the term Imagineer. And for those of you who don't know what an Imagineer is, it's the dream job. Its origins are from Disney, and the people that think up and conceptualize and design and create the Disney theme park experiences are known as Imagineers. And to become an Imagineer, you need to have a very specific skill set, and it's a combination of creativity and maths and engineering and all of those wonderful things. So it's the STEAM skill set: science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. And we've all had to be magicians at some point in our working careers and pull magic wands out of hats and work miracles. I know I certainly have. And that's why I like to call myself an Imagineer. A little bit about People Solutions, very well-known brand in the sector and in the training industry. They've been around for over 17 years, predominantly specialists in the BPO and GBS space, but we do a lot of work in retail and banking and in other environments as well. So although we are specialists in BPO and GBS, we have clients from all sectors across the board. We focus on impact training. So by impact training, I mean making an impact not just on the individual that you're imparting the skill to, but the people that they impact and the people that they support and look after in their lives. And in our country and in our environment, that is particularly relevant, where we know that often single income is supplying and supporting a family of 5 or more, and particularly in our industry as well. So that's really important to us, is that we can make that impact. And it's not only about employability, but earnability. In keeping with the theme of what's happened globally with the pandemic, if I look at what's happened to our industry and the world and individuals, our horizons and our plans have been obliterated. Our sector is no different. A lot of businesses have suffered huge loss. And having said that, a lot of businesses have also managed to survive and shown tenacity and resilience. But we can all agree that the sector is not what it was when we set out and did our planning in 2019 for the next fiscal. We've had to shift and change and adapt, and then adapt again. We've had to repurpose budget. We've had to rethink how we do things, how we work, where we work, how we learn online, how we learn face-to-face, how we do it safely. And we've had to accept and adopt and embrace the 4IR technologies that were kind of creeping up on us, but just happened overnight. Somebody flicked a switch and we were in the 4th Industrial Revolution. Our education systems in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s gave us an inoculation. And we had our inoculation, we got our degree, our diploma, off we went, we got a job, and we stayed in that job for 20, 30 years. That doesn't happen anymore. There's no vaccination that keeps you safe and secure and not at risk in this environment. You have to have continuous boosters and lifelong learning and ensure that your immune system, your knowledge immune system, is well looked after and fed, and that you're constantly updating it and embracing the new ways and changes to your lifestyle to ensure that you can stay safe and avoid as much risk as possible. And the learning and development arena is pretty much in the same boat. Our brains are wired for imagination. Both as children and as adults, we are simply delighted when we see something that is filled with fantasy and magic and imagination or illusion. We learn as humans by seeing and doing and feeling and experiencing things that happen to us and around us and that we can taste and experience. That's how we absorb them, and that's how we enjoy them. We consume stuff with reckless abandon, whether we're children or adults. Only the things that interest us and ignite passion in us are the things that we retain long term and enjoy and can apply in the real world. So why should our learning be different? And why don't we apply a little bit of magic to our methodologies in the way that we teach? So according to Coursera during the lockdown, and contrary to what most of us would like to believe, most people didn't use the time to upskill themselves to improve their abilities in their current jobs. Yes, there was the popular kind of content around Python and AI and deep digital skills, data science, automation, machine learning, etc. But the most searched for courses were in personal and self-development. So stuff like meditation and stress tolerance and management and the science of well-being, courses in happiness, positive psychology. Because we are human. We're emotional beings. We need to connect. We need to be inspired. We need to be enchanted with a touch of magic so that we can get through turbulent times in our lives. So the dystopian world that was written about by many authors, and we've seen the movies and we've studied the set works and read all about it. The COVID-19 pandemic created the largest disruption of education systems in history, and it's affected 1.6 billion learners in over 190 countries across all continents. The closure of our learning environments and our spaces globally meant that 94% of the world's students have been impacted in some way or another. Think about that. It's crazy. 99% of those students were lower income individuals. Now that is particularly relevant here in our environment. And we all saw that with accessibility, access to devices, connectivity, resources, and all those things becoming apparent as we flipped into this online, digital, remote working and learning space. In order to get through that, we're going to have to reimagine or imagineer how we do things, particularly with learning development and knowledge transfer. And we have to accelerate change in our business. We have to ensure that our IT infrastructure is equipped to ensure that our staff stay connected, whether they're working remotely, whether they are work from home model based. We have to get our CETAs and industry bodies and compliance bodies and representatives, as well as other training providers and business, to stand together and ensure that we all work together for the end goal. So we've done that throughout lockdown with our SETA, with Services SETA. And during the lockdown period, over the last 7 months, we did not want our learners to be impacted by what was happening. Why should they suffer and have their lives slowed down and the access to exiting and completing their qualifications impacted because of what was happening globally and the fact that they couldn't continue with their face-to-face studies? So we worked really closely with our SETA, we collaborated with them, and we managed to exit 180 of our learnership and skills program students during that period. And we did that through virtual external moderation. Something that previously was believed to be impossible suddenly became possible overnight. Pedagogue is a Greek word for a teacher, and it particularly refers to a very strict or pedantic teacher who is not very flexible. So it's quite ironic that the word pedagogy comes from that, and that's where its origins are. The experience is what matters, and that's where the magic comes in. Many brands are about the experience, and the reason they are recalled and there is brand recognition or brand loyalty is because they offer a certain experience, and that experience has come to be expected. So when you go to Disney, you expect to have a certain experience, and their reputation precedes them, and it is a magical and fantasy-filled, illusion-filled dream experience, and it still needs to be that, but it needs to be safe in this new environment. And yes, there needs to be the technology. It's got to be tech-enabled now. It's new, it's changed. There's got to be a social element to it, because at the end of the day, we're still humans, but it's still an experience. So although post-pandemic L&D is different, make sure that there's still a bit of magic in what you're doing. Make sure it meets the demands of business, by all means, it has to. Ensure that there's engagement, but provide a ride. Provide something that's memorable. Some really, really scary stats there from the World Economic Forum. And they estimate that by 2025, 85 million jobs are going to be displaced by machines. And I mean, we've all heard the scare theories around it, but they do estimate that 85 million new jobs will be created. And the only way we're going to transition ourselves and our staff and our families and our children and the future youth is by starting to build those skills now, the future skills. Having risk-adjusted working models and accessible infrastructure. And that's going to take, you know, our IT, telecommunications organizations, government, stakeholders, industry bodies, business, everybody working together to ensure that that accessibility is there, because that is key. Without that, you have nothing. And making sure that your teams are feature fit to meet those requirements. Our qualification frameworks also need to change, and I've said this for some time. They've been based on sending learners to varsity or to meet a specific specialized goal. And don't get me wrong, we need specialists, we do. I certainly want somebody who is a qualified brain surgeon operating on my brain, but not everybody wants to or can be a brain surgeon. But it's about making sure that our academic pathways are designed to create opportunity for people that can earn an income, whether it's through enterprise development, whether it's through on-the-job, fit-for-purpose training, and ensuring that the relevance of both formal and informal training and education is recognized. And we need to move away from the defined boxes and tick boxes, and you know, it's not going to help us create jobs. It's not going to help solve the problem. The rise of, not the machines, humanity has to rise up as we start to integrate with machines. And I'm a tech optimist And that means that I'm not scared of the future and the transcendence and the engagement with machines. I find it quite fascinating, and I do believe it's a necessity, and I don't think it's something that we need to fear. I'm sure people feared the computer when it first came out. I'm sure they feared the telephone, but all of these things have made a massive impact on our lives. What the pandemic did expose was how very real and very raw our humanness actually is, and how important it is. And we all felt that absolute pang of regret and the sadness and our complete disconnect from our loved ones when we sat and we sang happy birthday over Zoom to them, or, you know, enjoyed those moments of celebrations and special occasions with them through the lens of our device screens, and we looked at their smiling but sad faces, and we really we missed that human connect and touch. And mostly it was, you know, for their own safety or our safety, or our elderly or at-risk individuals in our families and friends. But the humanness is so blatantly important, and that's why sharing content live, virtually, but live, is still so important. And even when you're doing accredited learnerships and formal types of training, you can never go completely user and self-directed and never engage with human. It's just, it doesn't make sense to our humanness to operate in that way. I know we've also all felt the complete overwhelming sense of, I can't do this anymore after 8 hours back to back in Zoom meetings or MS Teams meetings, where you haven't taken any breaks all day because you just assume that now I'm doing stuff online, so I'm online 8 hours without breathing in between. It's about successfully blending that human and machine interaction. And we've got to observe that in training and skills development. We cannot expect that we're going to take a cut and paste, run a learnership or run a training program exactly like you did face-to-face, because you cannot expect somebody to be engaged online for that period of time. It has to be reworked and has to be adjusted. You've got to change direction, try stuff, try other stuff, and restructure the way you thought about things in the past, and provide shorter, structured learning options as well as micro-learning, because people just are overwhelmed with all the stuff coming at them. So we need to enable our learners to be able to access their learning anytime, through any device, anywhere. And that starts with the connectivity again, as I say, but it enables them to then learn something and apply it on the job, and they can reinforce those skills as they practice and refer back to the learning system. But they need to also be able to interact with a human. So whether it's through a live coach or the facilitator in group sessions or one-on-one sessions, it's still imperative that you do have that interaction. And it's a part of the accredited process. So we've managed to find ways to do that. But what are these magical skills of the future human that we have to bring? Digital literacy, we've spoken about a lot. Very, very relevant in our environment. And you've all heard of STEM and STEAM, but have you heard of SMAC? SMAC stands for Social, Mobile, Analytics, and Cloud. So that's the new acronym, as if we don't have enough with AI and IoT and VR and AR and all of this other stuff. We need that tech savviness. So that's a little bit of the digital literacy, but it's also understanding how to be cognitive flexibility, how to think about things critically. And those three in the middle are intrinsically human: judgment and decision making, emotional and social intelligence, and the creative and innovative mindset. Those are human traits for now, anyway. The theories behind the singularity and machine learning are starting to gain some traction, so that might not always be the case. But oh, and curiosity is another one that's human. How do we deal with paradox? How do we deal with this massive shock of the type of thing that's just happened to us all? The deer in the headlights. How do we mobilize and keep moving and remotivate and you know, understand that we have to deal with ambiguity and uncertainty and VUCA, and then financial literacy, absolutely, completely key right now in a debt-burdened society. And basic financial literacy, you know, that benefits everybody from entry-level job seekers to executives. And you'll see many versions of this list. This is one that People Solutions have put together from the World Economic Forum, as well as research prepared by Forbes, McKinsey, the World Economic Forum Jobs Report, which if you haven't had a copy of, it was released in October, please do download it. It is a wealth of information about the future. When I talk about Imagineering and People Solutions having Imagineered the future, we pivoted to change direction. And what a pivot is focusing on a new way that you can do things and reach different markets, or a new way that you can do the things that you've done to your existing market, but in a different way. Many retail outlets, shops and restaurants, etc., became online brochures and online catalogs and logistics and delivery companies overnight. Mercedes F1 were a great example. They shifted from making race cars to suddenly designing and producing breathing aids for the medical industry. It's incredible what you can do when you do shift and redesign that business model. And that was something that we did in April, May this year. We changed our delivery methodologies. What we once believed to be impossible suddenly became possible, just by reaching out and asking the questions. Why? How? How can we change it? What can we do? And we still do face-to-face. We always will. But we had to think about the OHS requirements, which we implemented. And then we had to look at and consider scale. And you know, how are you going to reach these people that are not able to travel or who are locked down? And how do we do this? How do we use various different tools and technologies to find a way through? Socio-technical systems refer to how society interacts with infrastructures and how human behavior is affected with that interaction and the relationship that humans have with technology. So we thought a lot about that when we designed these solutions and how we rolled them out. So we launched a number of learning platforms, and I call them learning platforms quite loosely because you get the LMS, the trusty LMS, you get the learning transfer platform, you get the learner experience platform, which is the newer version of what we're talking about these days. And that's really where people are focusing on, is the learner experience. So that's a look at the modern integrated corporate learning platform. And LMS is simply not going to cut it anymore. It's not enough. It was built for management. It was built to be a workhorse and be able to track and monitor and report and capture data and, you know, like DOS-based thinking. And I'm not saying all LMSs are like that, so please don't I'm not knocking LMSs. They have their place. They're part of the stack. This end-to-end stack here shows what you need and some of the components from the right-hand side that are being used for different types of employee development needs. And you'll see that the LMS is still there. It's still important, but it's right at the bottom because it forms the base of the pyramid, the base of the stack. And it has function, but it more likely needs to be integrated into other platforms and the experience side of it and apps, and it needs to talk to other parts of the puzzle. And then the experiential learning transfer platforms, which is where the magic starts to happen. So the new stack looks something more along those lines where, you know, you've got more of the learner experience. It's more around building and curating content and then measuring the use of that content. It's about being able to go mobile, talking to the digital nomads and the generations that understand the experience, the social elements, the way things are shared and content is exchanged. So your modern LXP, which is your learner experience platform, is more like a YouTube or a Netflix type functionality. It's got to be exciting. It's got to have the magic. So in October last year, we launched our first platform, which was futureskills.africa. Check it out. It's a really sexy little platform. It's based on microlearning, and it's algorithm driven, and a gamified environment that is data light. It's accessible from any device, anytime, anywhere. And we had at the time identified the future skills needed as set up at the World Economic Forum, and we also looked at what was needed in the GBS space as members of BPESA, and we started developing our content on that basis. And we have some work readiness content, as well as the future skills content, and also our financial literacy content. So that's a bit about the work readiness, and that is not an exhaustive view of the modules. They are, there's a number of them, and they're not only relevant to your new recruits and people entering the workplace, but could serve as refreshers or micro-learning for your current workforce as well. Financial literacy, as I mentioned, this course is 4 modules long. So it's money, smart, saving, budgeting, and debt and credit. Understanding those things. And as I say, from entry level right through to executive, absolutely imperative. This is the stuff they should have taught us at school. This is the stuff that helps you through crisis. It's the real stuff that you need to know. And then the future skills. And just on the financial literacy, if I can just jump back there, it's reduces your probability to default. So for your consumers, it's an absolutely imperative course to do as well. Multiple modules in process, and there are more in development, so we're adding to it as we go. Do check it out. There's a free module if you log into the system and register on lifelong learning, and I recommend anybody who embarks on any form of learning online or engaging in any content and courses should do the lifelong learning free module, because it teaches a culture of lifelong learning and teaches you how to unlearn the way of learning that you knew before and relearn a new way of learning. This was our next platform that we launched in April, May as part of our pivot, and this is based on an LMS. So as I mentioned, it does have its place, but it also is integrated with other platforms, and we've done that by partnering with best of breed partnerships and providers. This LMS managed or helped us manage to deliver our solution around 14 of our accredited learnership programs. We can now do virtually, and 140 of our non-accredited courses are on there. We can customize those and we can create bespoke pathways, and we did throughout the crisis as well, around crisis management and business recovery skills, and then obviously there's some soft and future skills and fundamental BPO and management skills, some team leader stuff. So you can combine and create pathways that suit whatever environment you need. As I mentioned, we partnered with best of breed providers. This is another one of the platforms that we integrate, and we've currently put a model together as an end-to-end software as a service solution using multiple platforms that integrate an LMS at the base of the stack with this particular learning transfer platform, and a micro-learning app stacked on top of that, as well as our futureskills.africa platform. So you can be the designer and the imagineer of whatever you want, and we'll bring our magic wands and make it happen in the back end. Just as I mentioned, some of the tools and the applications that we use, some of the international apps that we integrate, and these are some of our learnerships in the different NQF levels, 1 to 5, from contact center to new venture creation, business admin, and general management and project management. We also do banking and generic management at level 5. The learnerships and the accredited skills programs will always have a place. I do believe that. They're a requirement. The qualifications are a requirement for a number of reasons. But they must have the sparkle and the magic, which is where we've started to add in microlearning components into what we're offering around learnerships and skills development programs. And remember that in your scorecard, you have a percentage for your accredited programs and for your non-accredited. And you can now use the benefit of the accredited program and also get a benefit from some of the non-accredited microlearning or add-on modules that you add within that program as a separate benefit. And I think they have increased that percentage significantly now. I think it's 25%, to stand corrected, the non-accredited. Much of the standardized sort of BPO specific and some of the other learnership content was written some time ago, ensure that the current trends and business related elements are included, is adding in the microlearning aspect. So yes, you need to do Contact Center 3 and Contact Center 4, but you may need to know about social media marketing, and you may need to know a little bit more about working in teams or working remotely and how to communicate. Some of our BPO and GBS related content, and specifically around how we've changed as a sector and some of the remote working elements that we've included, particularly for team leaders. As businesses, you need to rapidly identify the skills that you're going to need to recover and rebuild your businesses, whether you've pivoted or not, and whether you have been impacted or not. What are the skills that are going to add the greatest value and have the greatest impact on your bottom line in the future? You know, is it going to be, are you moving from in-store sales to more online ordering and moving away from bricks and mortar to home deliveries? Your IT division, your online tech support, your customer service and queries, those teams are going to impact your new strategy. So identify those skills, and then you can build your future skills requirement from there. Some anger management and some EQ, and some stress and conflict resolution and negotiation skills that the use of technology and Zoom, etc., have brought out the best in us. I have no doubt. What are the success factors around what we launched and what we were able to integrate? We made sure that the pathways and the solutions and the content and the innovation that we brought about integrated into the flow of both work and life. So it had to be relevant to our clients, to the learner, but also to the learner's life and their connectivity, their home life, their time, all of those things, the humanness side of it. It had to be mobile and smart device friendly with the data light access, needed to be applicable into the workplace. Micro lessons, the bite-sized chunks kept our learners engaged. It needed to be collaborative, so the virtual coaches, the online social interactive portals and video conferencing. Future fit for IR, so relevant, contemporary, refreshed, and feedback focused. And one of the other things we do is we will help you structure your BBE spend, and we offer a consulting service on that. And recovery and resilience. The very technological disruption that is transforming jobs and you know, making some of the jobs of the future disappear and new jobs emerge. That disruption and that uncertainty and that dystopian place that we find ourselves in is also transforming the way people are acquiring skills and how they're thinking about the future. It's helping us learn new skills and grow and evolve. SA is equipped to deal with the change. We've proven that. We'll emerge from the crisis. We showed up so well. How we show up beyond the post-pandemic era is what's going to matter, so that we can continuously evolve, change our mindsets, change our models, our infrastructure, the skilled workforces that we're building, the youth, the future, so that we can carry on defining our true value proposition as an offshoring destination of choice globally. You have to invest in training. Don't defer it. I know we've had to repurpose budget, and I know we've had to put things off, but don't defer it for too long, because you're just offsetting that cost till later. You're going to have to spend twice as much, twice as quickly to get people where they need to be if you defer it now. Make sure that you're matching the needs of tomorrow with the skills that you're training for. Don't just train for the sake of training. And make sure that you add the magic. This is all going to have an impact, a direct impact on your customer service, on your customer experience. So make sure you link it to that. So remember the magic. Keep dreaming, keep innovating, and inspiring your teams. And well done on surviving this far. We as People Solutions look forward to imagineering the future of learning and development with you. And please contact me or one of my colleagues, reach out to us for a free ideation session, and we'll chat to you about what your skills needs are, training, ed tech, integration of technologies and tools, and we'll imagineer education together. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the session, and thank you to BPESA.